Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So I thought I'd do something a little different. We have two games to cover, so let's do a news roundup for both games at the same time. If you're a Path of Exile 2 fan, we're going to go through the patch notes at the very start. If you're a Path of Exile 1 fan, we're going to go through the special league that's been announced and some of the cool things that are coming into that as well. So there's a lot of information released today, fortunately, or a lot of information collectively, but not a lot separately. So instead of doing like two separate videos, it's just this in one video. Anyway, let's get into the video and talk about everything Path of Exile. And just a friendly reminder and a non-invasive one, if you haven't subbed to the channel, consider doing so. It's down below. Click the button. Otherwise, drop a comment of what you think about the changes, patch notes, and whatnot. Happy and keen to talk both Path of Exile 1 and 2. Okay, so first off the ranks is some changes to Path of Exile 2. These are the 0.1.1c patch notes. They should be out as of today. These were only posted at today, in fact, 8 AM this morning, so 5th of Feb today in Australia, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, whatever. If you're in the States, I think it's like the 4th in the States. Anyway, this patch adds respawn support for more endgame content, and also support for remaining characters through the website, as well as other improvements and bug fixes. We're going to be seeing a lot of bug fixes for quite some time for Path of Exile 2 because there are a lot of bugs and a lot of balance issues. But let's get into them. So they basically added more respawn attempts for Twisted Domain based on the area difficulty, and this is like scaled down. This is scaled down based on the increase in the difficulty, so it's expected the better you get at the encounter or the better your character, the more difficult the encounter is going to be because you're going to have less respawn attempts. The same for Orloff as well. The same for the Crux of Nothingness. The other thing is respawns can only be triggered now on Expedition logbooks by the creator of the Expedition logbook, Breachstone, or Audience with the King. Now, this is a problem for people that were going into other people's like trades and stuff like that, potentially. So you'd go into their like hideout, party up with them, they'd go in, brick your map or brick your portal or whatever it might be, and then you're screwed, right? So this is good change, definitely on side with it. They've added more checkpoints to maps. I have a lot of thoughts about why this is a problem in the game right now. I think this is an ad hoc stopgap solution for rebalancing map size and player speed. So if you're adding checkpoints because you have to quick travel around maps, it generally means that your player speed doesn't coincide with the size of your maps to achieve an optimum flow within maps. So that's probably a problem. And the backtracking issue is a big issue because that's actually one of the things that deterred people from the Diablo 4 dungeon systems. So I'm hoping that this is just an ad hoc solution right now to try and like get to somewhere better in the future with a bit more balancing. They've added a reset atlas chat command, which can only be used to reset your atlas, when it is in a bricked state. And I think, again, this comes from the fact that the endgame was on a 6-month rush, so it has a long ways to go. If you're bricking your atlas, then, yeah, it's probably a bit of an issue. Minimap for strong boxes, I really like this change. Also, minimap for league mechanics. So this was an absolute pain in the butt when going through a huge map, and you would have to backtrack to basically try and find where, you know, your different areas are, or you might do your breach spawns last or whatnot because there's a chance you'll brick your maps. It's basically my approach. That's really good. Hitting animation and inanimate objects such as ice crystals, temp spell, and vine arrow can no longer cause your triggered skills to generate energy. That feels like a nerf, which isn't good. Vine arrow plants now take damage from no longer take damage from hits, and therefore no longer cause your on-hit effects and similar stats to take effect. I feel like that's a nerf as well. Minions can now briefly squeeze through smaller gaps if they fail to move for a short period of time. Again, really good change. When you're playing like minions, they get stuck on stuff, so that's a really good thing because they sort of like look at the walls and like, we can't get through, bro, and then yeah, they don't go anywhere, and then you go in and you got no minions. Channel skills which scale their costs and attack speed modifiers now explicitly describe this. Yeah, I didn't really say that before, so that's good. Unused stats in the skill character, or unused stats in the skill and character menu interface are no longer displayed. The stun threshold tooltip now provides more information on stun mechanics. It didn't really give you much before, which is good. They've added customizable targeting behavior when using controller. These can be viewed and selected in the bind menu. So it's like auto lock and stuff like that. Added charms to the controller HUD. Again, more console changes. Added a setting to display advanced item information when inspecting items when using a controller. Again, just adding console changes here. Dedicated key bindings for confirming choices in various interfaces when using a controller. Again, same deal. Same deal. There's just a lot of like console changes here. Targeting behavior changes as well. Offering skills also have had improvements. Made further changes to reduce aggressive targeting of Temper Spell when using a controller. So basically you're overlocking on the Temper Spell instead of on the enemies around it. Revert the change from the 0.1.1 patch that allowed you to pick up items and interact with some objects while performing other actions due to issues that introduced. Yeah, that'd be like probably animation issues. You can now change the name of your Path of Exile 2 characters or swap the names of 2 of your characters. You can access through my account on the website after the patch is deployed, and also enable the following cosmetic microtransactions. The pilfering ring, that's actually really cool because it shows you like your currency drops and stuff like that. Maybe we do shorts and we'll show off some of these MTXs in the game as well for new players. Like I've got tons because I've been playing Path of Exile for so long, and I may have spent way too much money on the game. Exile's pedometer ring tells you how many steps you've done in the game. Evertree map device, Timekeeper's map device, Peddler's Rain hideout. That's a pretty cool one actually, because you have like gold sprinkled down from the ceiling. And Octoparasite pets. I can't remember what that one is. That might actually be the one that splits apart as you're running around. It's really cool. I've got that one, so we might try it out on stream. Continue to incrementally improve sound, art, effects, and environments. I actually really don't care about these changes so much, just mechanic changes at this stage, being able to see things visibly clear. Some of the issues is like your ground cover, stuff like that's really sort of obstructing your player. In a lot of ways, you can't see like ground dot or anything like that, which is really annoying. They've got a heap of bug fixes here, which I don't really want to go too much into. Like, it tends to be very specific to like bosses and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, bug fix where on death and elemental explosions from rare monster minions would fail to render. Yeah, these are all going to be like just things that need to be fixed over time. Yeah, okay. All right, they're just like genuine bug fixes, co-op changes as well. Anyway, overall, like, it's moving in the right direction. These are really like incremental patches right now to just get the game into a more playable state. And you know, whether or not you're pro Path of Exile 2 or you're not happy with it, these are good changes nonetheless. Obviously, we have a big economy reset coming in soon, which is going to be hopefully an enormous shake-up to endgame and everything else in between. So these are really good things. Like, definitely things like the minimap icons are a big improvement. I'm not for teleporting all over the map. I don't really like that. But more information about how the skills are interacting allows you to also rebalance skills and whatnot. So these are all moves in the right direction, but we definitely need more. What I really want to see in the big content update would be nice to actually see like axes and swords, but we're probably not going to see this until the Marauder and the Gladiator get added into the Ascendancy pool and the class pool in the game, which could be quite some time away. I do know that the Huntress and the Druid are next on the production slate for what they're supposed to be releasing to the game, but we'll see how this plays out anyway. Either way, I'm happy with these changes. The game is getting progressively better over time. Still quite busted in a lot of ways, but it will just take some time at this stage. I'm hoping for more frequent patches as well, so maybe this is a start of them just like, you know, trickling a weekly patch. Here's a weekly patch, here's a weekly patch. Not like a month or 2 months without patching, without a lot of information. It'd be nice to see just more consistent patching. But the big issues are definitely going to take a lot more time, such as the map sizing. It'd be nice to get like at least like 3 portals back to standard mapping and stuff like that, as opposed to 1 portal. You know, just these quality of life and overall balance changes that'll improve the end game for everybody equally. Anyway, that's it for Path of Exile 2 news. Let's get into the Path of Exile 1 stuff, because that's the really exciting stuff. Okay, so the first thing off the rank is, obviously, for anyone who wasn't aware, the Pohx League has been in effect for 4 days and 18 hours. Now, this was like just a total reset of the Standard League. It's a trade league. We are now up to 31,134 players of 40,000. And I believe this has only just been reset, like recapped up to 40,000. So it capped out at like, I think 20,000, then it capped out at 30,000. And again, it's growing again. Why are people coming back to this? Honestly, there's a huge player base that plays Path of Exile 1. Now, in the absence of a new league, a lot of players did want, a new reset, something new to play. They may not have liked Path of Exile 2. I understand what the Steam numbers also say in relation to Path of Exile 2, and some people will be like, well, that's better for GGG. I don't think we realize that 31,000 players playing a private league is wild. So that's never really been a thing in outside of like BPL League or the Zis gauntlets and stuff like that. This is quite significant, and this is just like a trade league setting without any special settings of just the 3.25 league. So there is absolutely, and this is running for 55 more days. So I'll put a link to this in the description if you want to join on to the Pohx League. Path of Exile 1 is an amazing game. And while a lot of people are like, oh, Path of Exile 1 can go eat shit and die, rah, rah, rah. I'm still going to be playing between both games. I find both games pretty good. Path of Exile 2 is a long way to go before it gets to Path of Exile 1. And obviously, there are still a ton of players that play Path of Exile 1 that makes Path of Exile overall a relatively profitable game for GGG. So there's no reason to turn around and say Path of Exile 1 should just die or anything like that. At this stage, we're just going through a teething period where GGG needs to figure out how they're going to effectively support both games, because very much Path of Exile 1 is a very avid and growing and beloved game by many, many, many players. Be it Path of Exile 2 has a lot of players right now. We also don't know where that hype is going to go when all the dust starts to settle, and we're already starting to see fatigue start to make its way into the Path of Exile 2 community, and people then looking to go to Path of Exile 1. I actually err on the side of less doom in this respect, and I think Path of Exile 2's success will actually lead to a reinvigoration of Path of Exile 1, especially for what we're about to talk about, which is the next Temp League that comes out, and I think it's going to run for a 1 month duration. They haven't really spoken about when it's going to come out yet, but I would say it would be coming out maybe a week before the end of this Pohx League, so maybe in 2 weeks' time. Anyway, let's get into the next part of the update. Okay, so I'm genuinely excited for this. Now, one comment I'll make is that I don't know why it took uproar from the Path of Exile community for them to make a decision to finally do some really cool experimental stuff here. Now, there are some comments I've read that were like, they just need to test Path of Exile 2 elements and Path of Exile 1 and use it as a test ROM. They've done that for the last 6 years, and now I think it's time that Path of Exile 1 is allowed to grow and be its own thing. Leave Path of Exile 1 alone, test the new mechanics in Path of Exile 2, but find a way to make the engines across both games improved and improve the game experience for all. There is still a large number of people that will play Path of Exile 1, and on a league reset, we're probably talking anywhere up to 120 to 150,000 people. So Path of Exile 1 right now on the initial EA may have garnered a lot of publicity, as well as myself and a large number of other creators are absolutely behind it as well. And I want to see it succeed, right? And it will. And it will be a really good ARPG. Path of Exile 1 is still a fantastic game, and it still has an enormous player base. So, this is where we get to with the Legacy of the Phrecia League, right? So they released this post today to give us a bit more information. Now, they started throwing around the idea of putting in like cutting room floor ideas into the game. I actually think this is really good. I don't think this is like a last minute sort of thing where, oh, well, it is a last minute thing. Let's be candid here. Like they got put against the wall and they had to come up with something, but it indicates that it was already somewhat in the game to an element, or it could have been made really efficiently if they just allocated the resources to it. I like the idea of 19 new Ascendencies making their way in the Path of Exile 1. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that we get a ton of new build varieties. Like, it just totally changes the game. Now, I don't want to see the old Ascendencies go, And if they added at least like one of each of these Ascendancies, the most popular ones, into the next league, this is a huge reinvigoration of Path of Exile 1 and will bring back a ton of players, irrespective of who will play this game and Path of Exile 2. Maybe there's a ton of people who play Path of Exile 1, and there's a ton of people who play Path of Exile 2. Do I think that there needs to be fracturing between the communities? No, we all need to cut that bullshit out and just get along at the end of the day. Now, that being said, this is a really cool announcement, and the reasons why are this. So, they've announced their plans for Path of Exile 1 event a couple of days ago, right? So, it's called Legacy of the Phrecia, okay? Or Phrecia. I'm reading this as Phrecia. It's to commemorate the great emperor and inspiration he gave us. I'm not sure what this refers to, if it refers to anything in the game, or if it actually refers to something to do with Chris Wilson or something like that. It'd be actually pretty cool if these were some of his ideas that he wanted in the game, and we're finally going to get them. But over the next few days, they'll be showcasing all the Ascendencies that they came up with. So we'll do a daily video of this, and then we'll compile it all at the end of the week. But as a start, take a look at the Harbinger. So this is going to be a Witch Ascendancy added in, and the Gambler, which is going to be on the Duelist. And right, the Duelist is really good at like block and spell suppression and things like that. Now these mechanics, only block is really in Path of Exile 2. Spell suppression didn't make its way into Path of Exile 2. It's a different mechanic. And block in Path of Exile 1 has spell and attack block, so there's two elements to it. But you also have things like the Savalan got added in, which has lucky block and stuff like that. And so this is what they showcase today. So number one, the Harbinger, right? Some of these nodes are really, really cool. So we zoom up a bit, right? So we have like 30% increased energy shield recovery rate and mana recovery rate, which could be really cool. 40% increased cooldown recovery rate. Grant summon greater Harbinger of time. Grant summon greater Harbinger of focus. Buffs expire 30% slower and debuffs 30% faster. Immune to curses while channeling, unaffected. There are some really good synergies with this. Like if you're able to multi-summon these Harbingers, right, and then you're able to do like channeling skills, there's actually items that are built into the game from Harbinger, like the shield, Harbinger shield, and I think there's a belt, Harbinger's belt, and stuff like that that give you a lot of this. So you could like multi-stack Harbinger buffs, but I actually feel like this could be really good as a summoner variant. And if you could summon multiple Harbinger buffs and have specters or something like that, this could be really cool. This also works hand in hand with like, you know, greater Harbinger of arcane skill. These buffs are quite powerful if they have the same or greater levels of potency. Temporal Chains has no reservation if cast as an aura. Again, that's a free aura. That's really, really powerful. 100% increased area of effect of Hex skills. So like Hex Blast could be a thing on this as well. There's just some really cool things that you could do with these combinations. From summoning to channeling skills to ES, CI builds, things like that. So like I would definitely try like my Lightning Tendrils build with this setup here. And Temporal Chains, I'm not too sure how we go about this, but a Hex Blast build and Hex Blast, like a self-cast Hex Blast build, for example, could work with this. There's a lot of really cool things. Now, who knows what the other two Ascendancies are going to be for the Witch? Really excited to see. I think this is really cool, and we will have to come up with new ways to play the game and or new builds or things like that that can synergize and capitalize on this. But a lot of this is like free buffing from these Harbingers and whatnot, so it's really cool. Now, Gambler. Gambler is pretty dope. So the idea of the Gambler is basically a probability, right? A chance at something good, but a chance at something bad. Now, if you can get enough like attack speed, if you can get enough chance, you can stack the chance in your favor. Growing Accumulator is really cool because you've got things like the Magnate, which give you increased chance for triple damage and double damage already. So if you actually played this with a Magnate belt, then you could actually increase your chance for double damage to a ridiculous sum. Almost like 1 in every 2 hits does double damage. And if you did something with Heavy Strike, which does natively double damage, then basically you could like guarantee double damage all the time and then have a really high probability of triple damage. Your critical strike chance is lucky. Damage with hits is unlucky. So if you ran a 100% crit chance build, like, and they're pretty easy to do in Path of Exile 1, like on a Trickster or something like that with Ephemeral's Edge or whatever it might be, though you don't tend to do that with Ephemeral's Edge, but, you know, even with, like, my Lightning Tennies build, there's tons of builds that do that. Assassin's builds, for example, are really good with that. This could be really powerful because you would have crit chances lucky, right? Heads, chance to block spell damage is lucky. Chance to block attack damage is unlucky. I actually feel like heads and tails is the opposite way around. You could totally abuse the Savalan to offset the downside and have like, you could have like normal attack block with lucky spell block or vice versa. And that could be really, really strong with some other defense layers in there like spell suppression or something of that nature. Overly confident, damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you're on low life, so you could literally play a low life Chevron's Wrappings Gladiator or Duelist, Gambler, aka. That could be really cool because you could do like int stacking and you could run like an int stack in an ES, Ephemeral Edge, low life sort of build where the damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you're on that low life, which could make you borderline immortal. That could be really cool, and you would like travel up through the tree. That you could even do like a low life Flicker Strike build, for example, run Aegis Aurora with Ephemeral's Edge and stack a whole ton of intelligence and totally abuse this mechanic because there's tons of synergies with crit here. You just need to figure out how to make it work with without using the Slayer, which if you use a Trickster, if you use Trickster Ephemeral's Edge tech on this could actually work really well with int stacking. Reversed odds, hits have 50% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistances values as inverted. This could work, like it already, there's a node that does this, which gives you 25%. So you could actually do 75% inverted elemental resistances. This could work really well with like a, oh, geez. So this could work really well with like an Omniscience build. Now, negative resistances or resistances cap out. Well, actually, inverted resistance is going to negative cap out at like, I think 200%. So if you're running Crystallized Omniscience, this could actually be extremely powerful because if you're stacking Omniscience, then you're doing straight pen. So you do straight pen plus inverted resistance. This could be really powerful on like a Lightning Strike Warden or something of that nature. Risky exploit, negative 25% elemental resistances, but 50% chance for elemental resistances to be counted as 90% against enemy hits. I have never seen that stat in Path of Exile, but that could be really strong on like Delve characters. In fact, both of these stats could be really strong on Delve characters. So interested to see where people get to. Lightning Strike really comes to mind with this, so who knows. Risk aversion, 50% to avoid elemental ailments, 50% chance to avoid being stunned. Like these nodes on this side with one of these nodes is really, really tanky. Like if you took growing accumulator and risk aversion and risk exploit and reverse odds, I reckon you could probably run a really strong Delve build, to be honest with you. And I say that because I love Delve. But yeah, this is really cool. Anyway, I really think these Ascendencies are creative and they are probably what Path of Exile needed to do some time ago. Like we got the Warden last league and the redesign of the Gladiator because that needed to happen. But realistically, adding more Ascendencies, like why not? Like we're at a point where they added like the best or the most worked Ascendancy in each of the classes in the next big 3.26 league. And maybe this is actually an element of the 3.26 league and them testing things in Path of Exile 1 to see where they can go with a new direction in Path of Exile 1. I actually am not negative to this, and people will say this is a really old game but it's a really old game that's been serviced to, you know, the best of where current games are, less dodge roll and WASD. I think if they added WASD from Path of Exile 2, and arguably there's no reason why they couldn't, the architecture still, like the architecture is there, and if they found a way to like re-rig dodge roll into this, or even just like a space dash, which is similar to what Titan Quest 2 is doing, then there's no reason why you couldn't really get Path of Exile 2 or Path of Exile 1 to a more modern sort of current level point where it starts to take some of the personas of Path of Exile 2 while keeping what Path of Exile 1 sort of made special within its own sort of archetype of game. Either way, I think these changes are really cool. They've also showcased this. This looks like you can store maps in here, and then you basically just like load the maps down instead of having to store them in your inventory. So you could pre-craft all of your maps, and then basically just drop them in as you go. So you go, bop, 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 bop. This is really efficient. It's crazy that they would add this in the Path of Exile 1, but not consider something similar for Path of Exile 2 to streamline Path of Exile 2. But yeah, this would be really cool if that is exactly what they're planning to add. So anyway, do I like the look of Legacy of Phrecia? Yes, I think it could be absolutely fantastic short league, and I hope it builds to what the future of Path of Exile 1 will be, which is them adding really cool and innovative ways to create build variety. There is tons of skills and tons of things to do in Path of Exile 1. And I think for the longest amount of time, if this is the direction they take the game, this is probably not a negative direction, and it could end out reinvigorating Path of Exile 1 for the Path of Exile 1 community, and also a big chunk of the Path of Exile 2 community. Do I think that they're going to do away with Path of Exile 1, like a number of parties suggest online? No. They've invested over 12 years into that game. They've built a pretty loyal community, and what we can see from the Pohx League, with 31,000 within 4 days already signing into the league on just a private league, being totally funded by the community, I think there's merit enough that Path of Exile 1 should stay and should be developed further into the future. And we look at things like WoW and everything else in between, still exists to this day, still has tons of players playing it to this day. League of Legends is, what, 14, 15 years? I remember playing that when I was in my first year of uni, and I'm old. So is there staying power for POE 1? Yes. Do both communities between Path of Exile 1 and 2 need to start making nice and getting along a little better? I think so. So yeah, anyway, that's my wrap up for news for Path of Exile for the week. So hopefully you're still here, and if you do like this type of video where we go through and we amalgamate it and we make Path of Exile one big thing, because that's what it really is, then don't forget to like and sub to the channel. And anyway, until next time, I'll see you guys later. I have some videos about Path of Exile 2 mechanics that I'll be putting out in the next day as well, in particular about Cull. I had some advice from the community on my Twin Mace build, and it worked really well. And also, I'm doing a Twin Mace Monk with Frost Breath, and what I found is Frost Breath is actually really good as an offhand weapon, so we're going to keep progressing that on stream every second night, and every other night we're going to be progressing Path of Exile 1, doing some delving and stuff like that. And I think that might be a good direction moving forwards, is a blend of both games on the channel. For those who have supported the channel from the very start, and for also those who want to jump on board for Path of Exile 2, I'm going to do my best to create content that's as equally across the board as possible, which is a little difficult and time consuming, but it's all good. It's part of the future of where the channel needs to go. I'm not going anywhere. I know some other creators are bowing out and doing different things and whatever. I have no intention of doing that. I am a Path of Exile player through and through, and have been and will be into the future. And Titan Quest 2's coming out. I'm super keen for that. And if Battlefield looks really good, we might play a bit of Battlefield as well. I even tossed around the idea of some League of Legends, but we're probably not going to do that. But yeah, maybe now and again on the weekends. Anyway, I'll see you guys later and have a good one.